Should more animals be adopted or bought from breeders? Many people want to extend their families, whether that be with babies or animals, or maybe even both. If you're thinking about extending your family with an animal, consider adoption instead of buying from a breeder. According to the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals states approximately 6.5 million companion animals enter U.S. shelters nationwide every year. Since there are that many animals entering the shelters, there will be plenty of options on what type of animal to pick from. The pros to adopting animals is it's cheap and it saves money, optional ages, and if these animals in the shelters aren't adopted, they're euthanized. One reason to adopt instead of buying from a breeder is it will cost less and you will save money in the long end. Nobody wants to go in debt for buying an animal, and nobody should. According to the Best Friend Animal Society, buying an animal can cost easily $500 or $1,000 or even more. While buying an animal from a breeder, you're close to spending a couple of $1,000s on an animal, and that could just be for one animal. If you adopt an animal, you won't spend that much money. Adopting an animal from the shelter could cost between $50 to $200, depending on if it came from a city or a rescue group. So automatically adopting an animal will save you money. Now, you're probably thinking about veterinarian bills. With veterinarian bills, most shelters cover that bill, along with a few other ones. A website called the Kiwi Report states, although you'll still pay a fee up front, that usually covers certain medical costs too. Already, adopting an animal from the shelter will be saving you plenty of money. Half the shelters cover veterinary and medical costs for you. They cover these costs with, like you can get a cage from the adoption center, you get a bedding, you can get food, they'll cover any type of shots that you need for the animal. Another reason why people should adopt instead of buying from a breeder is you'll have an option on what age you want. Many people would want puppies or kittens, while others want adult animals. Many want adult animals because majority of them are already house trained, while those who want the baby animals want the full-on experience of having a baby animal, like a puppy or a kitten. A website called Clear the Street states many of these animals, especially older ones, have already been house trained and socialized. Shelter and rescue staff work hard to prepare the pets for the transition to a new home and family. This doesn't mean that just the adult animals are house trained. The baby animals are more than likely house trained too. Whichever age animal you decide, whether it's an adult animal or a baby animal, that animal will have some type of training throughout the shelter. Last but not least, you should adopt animals instead of buying from breeders because those animals that aren't getting adopted will be euthanized. The reason why the animals are euthanized is because the shelters are running out of room for the animals. According to a website called the Humane Society states, each year 2.7 million adoptable animals, dogs and cats, are euthanized in the United States simply because too many pets come into shelters and too few people consider adoption. Since people don't consider adopting, more and more animals enter shelters, which causes the shelters to run out of room. The animals that are euthanized aren't just adult animals, it's whatever animal that has been there the longest and that shelter sees they won't be adopted soon. If an adult animal has been in the shelter for a year or so and a baby animal like a puppy has entered in, the animal that has been there the longest, like the adult animal, would be euthanized first before the baby animal, because the baby animal will more than likely be adopted before the adult animal. A website called the Helping Hands Humane Society states, all the animals at our shelter are in need of a second chance. They have been lost, given up, or abandoned. They are all unwanted and helpless. The animals in the shelters are only there because their previous owners didn't care for them, or they were left on the streets where the Humane Society picked them up and took them into their shelters. All the animals need is a second chance, and half the time the animals that are in the shelters don't get a second chance because people want a brand new dog that they buy from a breeder instead of having one that is perfectly fine from the adoption center. Overall, if you're thinking about extending your family with animals, consider adoption instead of buying from a breeder. You'll save money in the long end. You'll have option on what age you want, whether that's an adult animal or a baby animal like a puppy or a kitten. And if these animals aren't adopted, they're euthanized because there is not enough room for all these animals in the shelters nationwide. So you could be the reason why an animal gets a second chance at life.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.